This is a table that I built out of a salvaged gear from Madison Square Garden. It was original 1968 Westinghouse machines that we got this gear out of. And if you're wondering how the heck I got the gear, in the summer of 2012, we had done a rehab on all the elevators and escalators in Madison Square Garden. And in this particular case, we did what's called a raise up, where you do exactly what you think. You rip the entire top of the elevator shaft off and you raise the equipment, rails, everything, so it serves a higher destination. And in doing so, you rip out all the old equipment. And as we were ripping it out, we saw the brass gear and we said that would be really cool to make a table out of it. Little did I know I wasn't going to do it for 12 years. So this thing sat in my backyard out in the elements for that entire 12 years and barely had any tarnish on it. And when you see some of the pictures of it, the only reason it has tarnish on it is because I spilled driveway salt on it. Now, the base I made out of black walnut, about 2.5 inches thick, in order to kind of counterbalance the industrial nature of the gear. I think it worked out well to kind of soften it up a little bit. And here you see me kind of fitting up the parts. And what I decided to do is go way over the top, and I drilled, I think those are 1-inch holes, and you'll see I put steel dowels in it. And honestly, I didn't even need to do that. It was way overkill, but I kind of wanted the challenge of trying to figure it out. It's so impractical. I could have just put wooden dowels in and it would have been fine. That being said, this gear is 157 pounds. So it's pretty heavy duty, which is why I did want to go with some thicker base that would really stand up to any sort of, if you were to tap or bump into this thing, you'd want this thing to hold up. And you see right here, I'm drilling in the dowels and fitting them. And for the most part, it was a bit challenging because I had to kind of freehand this part, which is not what you really want to be doing with steel dowels or any sort of dowels. You want perfect, absolute straight holes. But I had to do a little bit of freehanding. It ended up working out. And I just ended up using a lot of extra epoxy when I was putting this thing together. The steel dowels I cut to about 6 inches. So this way they would go into the adjoining piece about 2 inches each. And originally I was cutting it on a bandsaw, but the bandsaw crapped out on me, so I moved over to a chop saw, which made nice, even, perfect cuts. And here you see I'm just dry fitting this, kind of seeing if this thing is going to actually work, especially since I did end up freehanding it. And you'll see this wood is marred up pretty bad, and I did end up bringing it to get planed down at my local lumber yard. And then here I am just kind of doing some final sanding on it. I sanded a lot on this project just to get it to the way I wanted it. And I was pretty happy in the end, but definitely a lot of work sanding. Now, rarely do you do a project where you say, you know, everything went absolutely perfect. And this is one of those areas right here. I'm routing this thing before I put it together. I should not have done that, because where the pieces are joined together with the round over, I had to hand work that intersection piece, and you'll see it later. If I would have just waited to do all the rounding over at the end, I think it would have worked out better. I ended up making it work, but it's one of those pieces on a project where you're like, man, I shouldn't have done that. But at that point, I was already committed, and this wood, as many of you know, is not cheap, so I wasn't about to go buy more stuff. And, you know, usually you end up just, if you can't fix it, feature it sort of thing. You know, you just make it work somehow. And gluing it up was more of a challenge than I thought it was going to be. I was originally going to take 2 large bar clamps and go one on the top, one on the bottom, and just squeeze the whole thing together. because as you can see, it's a angular beveled sort of cut. The bar clamps didn't want to hold that well, and I could have made a piece of wood to make up that angle and then clamped it together. But ultimately, I just decided to hang this thing over the edge. I had a bunch of weight left over from a job I did because the dowels are sticking down because they were glued in. You see, I have it hanging over. I made sure it was a 90 degree, put some weight on it, and then glued it together that way. And it ended up working out, but it was more challenging than I thought it was going to be. And here I am doing the final routing, and you'll see this inside corner is where I had problems, where I shouldn't have routed originally when it was flat on the table, because it kind of screwed up that inside corner. And you'll see here I am working that now to try to make it look even. You see I got a little round file, and I'm in that corner really trying to make everything look kind of uniform and look really good. And it ended up working out to my satisfaction anyway. And here I am hand sanding the heck out of this thing, just making everything the best I can make it. And for protection, I went with the Rubio Monocoat with a sort of cream tint to it. And here you see me just working it in, taking it off, and I did end up going with 2 coats on that, which is what I standard pretty much do on all these things nowadays. The gear coming up in the next scenes is made from bronze, and bronze is essentially just copper, tin, and sometimes they put a couple of other ingredients in it, but for all intents and purposes it's just 2 things. It's basically copper and tin, and it's, I want to say, about 90% copper. And these things are heavy duty, and the thing that just fascinates the heck out of me about these gears, you could literally take this gear, put it in a field, and it could probably be there for 1,000 years and just not degrade. And that's what's just really cool about that. When you see the gear coming up that I'm cleaning up, the only reason it has any sort of corrosion on it is, like I mentioned earlier, I spilled driveway salt on the thing and it got some discoloration, but it came right off. It didn't pit it. It didn't do anything to it. I mean, these things are just absolutely amazing. And if you're wondering, why the heck would you use these sort of gears anyway in a machine? It just seems impractical. And there's several reasons that they use these things in elevator machines, but durability, wear resistance, corrosion resistance. It actually, because this gear interfaces with what's called a worm gear, and it actually sits in a pool of lubricant, gear oil basically, and these gears really hold that lubricant in very well. And also, the 2 dissimilar materials of bronze and metal go together well, because if you had just a steel on steel connection in a gear, it would tend to wear a lot quicker. And these gears also are really good for absorbing shock and noise, and that's something you would definitely feel in an elevator ride. So just in case you're wondering why you would even put the expense of putting these things in, because I'm not sure what these cost to buy one new, but I guarantee you they're not cheap, because we all know anything copper nowadays is really expensive. But at the end of the day, it's worth it. So here's just a final go around after cleaning this thing up. And I'm a sucker for mechanical things. I think this thing is beautiful personally. I just think it's really cool, absolutely unique, and totally glad I ended up finishing this project. For well over 44 years, this gear spun day and night, whisking people to wherever they needed to go inside of Madison Square Garden. And to me, it's interesting to think about, I mean, just any person you admire any sort of athlete, performer, had definitely rode this elevator, because this was like the main elevator in the entire place. And I just think it's really cool to think about it. At the end of the day, it's just, to me, a really cool conversation piece. And I happen to think it came out really cool and fits my place, that sort of modern industrial vibe, really, really well. So definitely a cool conversation piece, fun to build, and hope you enjoyed it. Here's one last closing sort of shot, and see you on the next video.